You are listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. I'm Kyle Bryant.
And I'm Sean Baumsart. Together, we're navigating life with disability.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today for episode 17. We have an incredible guest that we're excited to have on the show. Sports Illustrated has acknowledged Roger Crawford as one of the most accomplished physically challenged athletes in the world. After realizing tremendous success on center court as a Division I athlete, he took his talents to center stage and became a motivational speaker. Roger has been inducted into the National Speakers Association Hall of Fame, and to this day, he continues to positively influence audiences worldwide through keynote speeches and best-selling books. Welcome, Roger. We're honored to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks, Kyle. I really appreciate it. It's very, very nice of you to invite me, and like I said, I'm honored to be your guest.
So, I think in every bio there are stuff that is there are things that is left out. And so what's left out from your bio? Can you tell us your story in your own words?
Yeah, sure, Kyle. Well, I was born with a physical challenge, obviously. You read about that in the intro. It affects all four of my limbs, basically from the elbows down and from the knees down. My left leg was amputated when I was 5 years old, so I could be fitted with an artificial leg or prosthesis, which gave me much more mobility and agility. But, I grew up with the philosophy that, hey, everybody's got challenges. I mean, some challenges you can see and some you can't. Some challenges are real. However, both of you understand this and have demonstrated this in your own life, that really what disables us is really the way we think. It's really not how we are physically. It's how do we look at challenges? Do we look at challenges as something that's going to defeat us or something that's going to motivate us? Because I really think that real handicaps, if you will, like handicaps like mine that you can see, those can be overcome. It's the imaginary ones that really hold us back. And so I think growing up with that philosophy really helped me not only accept my physical challenge, but it also forced me not to look at it as an excuse.
Awesome. Well, Roger, I so appreciate that message. I want to play devil's advocate because and I'm sure that you've answered this question so many times.
Sure.
And if, when I'm delivering a message similar to this, I try to think of all the things that people could say, but what about this or what about that? So what about like you and I can ride my trike and I ride for a long ways. Sean can walk around still and have a full-time job. What do you say to people that feel like their disability is so severe that it doesn't allow them to find the things that they love in life?
Mm-hmm. So I think that's a great question, Kyle. And what I would point someone to that feels that way is to seek out examples of other people in similar situations that have gone on and found success. Now, I want to be clear on this. There are times when someone's disability is so severe that there's no question that it's going to eliminate some of the possibilities in their life. However, isn't that true for all people? I mean, we're all kind of differently abled. And I really appreciate the essence of your question, Kyle, because I think it's a very good one. Because sometimes people do feel that way, that they have their challenges so overwhelming that they're unable to do this or unable to do that. But I think that in today's world, we can all find examples of someone who has been in a similar situation, but yet has found a way to be successful.
Yeah, the person that comes to mind for me, and I'm sure for you too, a lot of times is Christopher Reeve. I mean, that guy, after he was injured, he couldn't hardly move. I read his book where he was worked for weeks just to move his finger.
Right.
And he accomplished so much arguably even more after he was injured than before, And so, I think that's right. I think it's important to look to examples, and you are absolutely one of them. So
I think it's really great. I love that you said it that way, Roger. It's if you just take it away from disability, look at everybody else in life. We're all up against something. Some people want children and they can't have them. That doesn't mean life is over. I think about Hollywood. Probably 500,000 people move to Hollywood every year to try to be an actor, and maybe 5% of them actually make it, quote unquote. It doesn't mean life's over for those people. I love the way you put it. There's a challenge for everybody, whether it's disability related or not.
Right. And Sean, that's a great point. And I also think that sometimes people buy into the myth that, gosh, if I could take my disability away, then my life would be perfect. And here's what I really believe. I think that a disability just reveals who you are. And let me clarify that. I have had this happen. I bet both of you have as well. A person say something similar to this. I have a relative of mine, maybe aunt, uncle, brother, sister, whatever it may be, that was injured and now they're disabled and they're bitter, they're angry, they're pessimistic, they're hard to get along with. And my question back to them always is, well, how were they before the disability? And almost everyone says, just about the same.
Yeah.
Isn't that true?
It is.
And so what that tells us is that it's much more about our choices, right? It's much more about attitude.
Yeah.
So that's what I really, I'm really convinced of that. The older I get, I'm much older than both of you guys, but, the older I get, the more convinced I am that, disability, it's all about perception. It's all about the way we choose to think. I mean, if I had to live my life all over again, I wouldn't change my hands or my legs. I mean, there's been some downsides to it, but there's been much more positive to it.
Sure.
So, just to develop everyone's vision of you, accurate vision of you a little more, I wanted to establish how incredibly impressive your tennis playing was, or is. What was your record in college?
So my record in college was 22 wins and 11 losses. And then in high school, it was 47 wins and 6 losses.
Jeez.
Wow. And so who were these opponents that you were up against? Was this a special physically challenged division that you were playing in?
Right. No, Kyle, actually, all the competition that I participated in was against able-bodied athletes in high school and then in college at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles.
Wow. So how did that feel on the other side, going up against someone who had a perceived advantage over you because of physical abilities?
Well, what a great question that is. So Kyle, here's how I would answer it. Think about this for a moment. Maybe I was the one that had the advantage. I mean, wow. My opponent would walk out on the court and see me for the first time, and you know what they were thinking? I better not lose to this one-legged guy with 3 fingers. You know what I mean, right? So there was a lot of pressure on them. So the reason that I was able to play tennis at that level was I became very proficient at doing one thing on the tennis court, and that was keeping the ball in play, hitting the ball back over the net. What that did was, that was my strength that I focused on and concentrated on and tried to perfect it as much as possible. And what that did is that mitigated the fact that I wasn't the fastest or I wasn't the most powerful. Because the truth is, on the tennis court, that's the most important thing, is can you be consistent? Can you hit the ball over the net? Now, granted, when you get to the level of the pros we see on television, there's a little more involved than just being consistent, but the kind of level I was playing was just hitting the ball back over the net. And you brought up an interesting point, and people ask me that. Did you ever compete in any against other disabled athletes or whatever? Keep in mind that there wasn't anything like that when I was growing up. Yeah. There wasn't the Paralympics. There wasn't anything like that, Kyle. And Sean, there wasn't anything like that.
So the choice was, play or don't play, pretty much.
That's exactly
totally.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so I just read your book, Playing from the Heart, and I had a few things that I highlighted and wanted to bring up and ask you about. One of them was you talked about being in the zone, and I really appreciated your brief description of it, because I think I've been in the zone before in golf in high school. There was like 3 or 4 holes that I remember very vividly in high school where I honestly had like a 60-foot putt. And before I even hit it, I knew it was going in. It was so crazy. And every time I hit the ball, I would just feel perfect contact, and I was totally playing outside or inside of myself or outside of whatever. But you described that, and so can you talk a little bit about being in the zone in tennis?
Sure. So the first thing I would say for people that are listening, maybe they're not involved in tennis, but they're involved in some activity. It doesn't have to be athletic, that they really want to be successful at or really want to be in the zone. So what I would say is this, that people talk about the will to win, and I think the will to win is really the will to prepare to win. And what I mean by that is you can't get in the zone unless you're fully prepared for the moment. So that requires, practice, that requires, mental rehearsal and so forth. So you got to be prepared, right, to reach that level where you're kind of in the zone, which means that everything is just coming naturally to you. I mean, you've prepared so well. Your practice has been effective, and now you're just kind of executing on what you've already done. Because there's a saying on the tennis court that goes like this: you need to practice like you play, so you play like you practice. So basically what that means is when you're on the tennis court, when you're practicing, you have to take it as serious as when you're in the match. So that's the first thing I would say about being in the zone. And the second thing I would say about being in the zone is to the best of your ability, block out all the negative thinking and all the negative outcome, the negative prediction about what might happen. Often what compromises our performance is not because of something real, but it's something imagined. You talked about that 60-foot putt. You said before you hit it, you knew it was going to go in. Okay, well, let's look at the flip side. If before you hit it, you knew it wasn't going to go in, it wouldn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
totally.
So I think it's just so important that we prepare ourselves mentally, physically, emotionally to be successful. It's like, Kyle, you and I have talked a good bit about speaking. And I had someone the other day prior to a program I was giving, and I was behind the stage, I was practicing. And this guy came up to me, he wanted to be a speaker, and he said, I don't understand, you've been doing this 30-some years, why are you practicing? And I said, because I have to get ready for this moment of being up there in front of the group. Even though maybe I've done something similar before, it doesn't matter. I have to be prepared for it. And so, before I speak, I give that speech a number of times before I'm on stage. I practice it. I practice lines. I practice the humor I'm going to use, anything I'm going to use that's new in the presentation, so that when I'm up there, right, I already know where I'm going. I already know what I'm going to deliver.
This reminds me of a thought, or a talk that I watched on Jimmy Valvano. He was a very successful college basketball coach, and in one of his talks, he talks about understanding the correlation. If you don't work hard, you can't succeed. It doesn't mean working hard is going to give you success.
Right.
But if you don't try, if you don't practice, if you don't prepare, there's no way you're going to experience success. And just hearing you say it in those sort of words reminds me of his stance on it. I totally agree. You're absolutely right.
I was thinking about this the other day. We're almost at the NBA Finals. We're talking about LeBron James. And they said that when some of the younger players, usually show up early on game day. They show up early and they go through their routine and practice. And they say LeBron James has never missed being the first person there. And I thought, wow, maybe the greatest player of all time, arguably, and that he's always the first one in the gym. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence.
No, and that's right, Kyle. You're exactly right. It's not a coincidence. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I want to jump around a little bit. So, you're going off to college, and there's something your dad said to you that really hit me because it's nothing super deep or anything, but I think it relates to all of our situations. When we have a disability, we always get a little bit upset when someone doesn't understand and when someone treats us a certain way that we don't think is right, or when they're asking too many questions or whatever. And there's just a misunderstanding. But your father said when you were going off to college, you said, "Remember, son, it's your responsibility to help others feel comfortable with your physical challenges." And I really like that quote. It really spoke to me because, it takes all the responsibility and puts it on your shoulders instead of blaming other people for not understanding some things that you think they should.
What that really communicated to me was that, ultimately it was my responsibility how I was going to respond to people. And it was really my responsibility to show other people that I was comfortable with who I was. Okay. Now, look, like you two, I have had people say insensitive things to me. I've had people speak loud to me, think I couldn't hear because I'm missing fingers. You guys have been through the same thing. But what I've accepted in my life is that, I ultimately had that responsibility to how I'm going to respond. I mean, there's some people that just say stupid stuff, okay? And it's like this. I was talking to somebody the other day who has a child who's disabled, and I said, you can focus in on the 1% of people that may not accept you or treat you poorly, or you can focus on the 99% of people that are great to you. And it just depends on what you focus on. But I do believe that, especially in my case, because people look at me, they don't know whether I've been in an accident, whether I was in the military. And so there's an uncertainty about my disability. And for some people, they're initially might feel a little uncomfortable. To tell you the truth, I just cut them a little bit of slack because I understand it's something different. I cut them a little bit of slack. Now, that being said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you there hadn't been times I've been really mad at some things a person said to me. I mean, I gave you one example. You guys will really appreciate it. I had somebody book me to speak who really knew nothing about me, just basically called and said, "Want to book you?" And I met this person. This person looked at me and said, "It's amazing. You didn't sound handicapped on the phone." Well, that's funny. So I just learned. You just learn to. I think humor is a great form of communication. I think it's a great way of coping, and You just have to be able to see the humor in some of that. And I would say to people that are listening that have disabilities is that, look, sometimes you got to toughen up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that in a harsh way, but just sometimes you gotta realize, look, everybody gets things said to them that are insensitive, okay? And I didn't mean that you shouldn't, that you've got to have dignity and you have to be, all of that is important. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes, I'll talk to people and they're looking to be offended.
Right.
Everywhere they look for someone to offend them.
Yeah.
And wherever you look, whatever you look for, you're going to get.
Yeah.
Totally. Humor plays such a big part in getting through life, no matter what you're up against, whether it's disability or something else. There's so much value in laughter, and I'm with you 100% on that. And Kyle and I do our best to make fun of ourselves and to have a good time here on the show and just enjoy life despite whatever challenge you're up against. That's such a big part of life. Side note, in my day job, I'm in front of people quite often, and Roger, some of the symptoms that Kyle and I deal with, or at least any FA deals with, is we appear to be drunk a lot. So I find a way to make fun of that and to kind of put the room at ease. And there have been times where I pull out an empty flask just to drive the point home.
Oh, that's funny. See, that's great. That's funny. And you know what's great about that, Sean, is haven't you noticed how humor also puts other people at ease?
Totally.
I mean, just because look what you've communicated to the audience. You've communicated them as, hey, look, I'm comfortable with who I am. I can see the humor in it as well. I know what you're thinking. You're being sensitive to them. See, I mean, like one of the lines I use in my speech is I say to audiences, this is right from the beginning. And I'm not going through all the explanation of why my hands look this way or whatever. But one thing I say to them is I say, you're probably wondering if having arms that are short and having 3 fingers, if there's any difficulty that I had today. And I said, yes, there is, with selfies. And then what I'll do is I'll pull my phone out, right, and I'll turn my back to the crowd and I'll take a picture, and it cracks them up because they're all doing selfies. It's something they can all relate to, and just little things like that.
Another line.
That's great.
Another line that I love of yours is when you're telling the story about buying a new jacket in the men's warehouse or whatever it was. And you say, I don't have a 36 long or whatever. I have a 36 strange.
Yeah, right. 42 strange, yeah.
42, thank you. Yeah, excuse me.
No, that's all right.
But I just think that it's so valuable to let everyone know that it's okay to laugh. Right?
Before we move on to another question, I'm going to insert one here real quick, Roger.
Sure.
Kyle mentioned your dad. I watched one of your talks, and you had quoted your dad. He said something very motivational to you, and that is, Roger, you don't live in you don't live in Pity City.
Right.
And it sounds like your dad was such a big part of helping you form a positive outlook and keeping a positive mindset on this. Where do you suppose that came from? Did your father live with any sort of any sort of visible challenge like that, or was he just so in tune with helping make life great for you?
Right. So the best way I could answer it is no. Well, first of all, no, he didn't really have any experience with anybody who's disabled. So my dad's philosophy was, I guess some people, well, I know there were some people that were critical of my dad when I was growing up because they felt he was very, very hard on me. But looking back, I'm pretty grateful for it. He's a pretty tough guy. And what I mean by tough, I don't mean that he's not loving, but he tough in the fact that it was like he wasn't going to listen to excuses from me. he wasn't going to allow me to feel sorry for myself. I had responsibilities growing up, just like my younger brother, whether it be chores or cutting the lawn or whatever. He was just insisted on that. And looking back at it, I'm grateful because it gave me a sense of independence. It gave me a sense of, I guess, for lack of a better term, toughness, and the fact that, I was determined. I wasn't going to let an excuse get in my way. I wasn't going to focus in on what I couldn't do. I was going to focus on what I could do. So I'm not sure where that came from, Sean. He just insisted that I give my best at all time. And if I would use my hands or my legs as an excuse, he would very quickly redirect my thinking.
He insisted that you give your best.
Absolutely.
I love that you said that. Thank you.
Regardless, because isn't it true, Sean, that oftentimes people let their lives be dictated by their circumstances?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, all they think about is my limitations, what I can't do, or reasons that people have rejected me, and they just dwell in that world and let their circumstances just control them. And the truth is that what really controls us is our choices. It's our mindset. It's what attitude are we choosing? Are we choosing an attitude of possibility, or are we choosing an attitude of problems? Because here's the thing. In life, you don't need to spend a lot of time seeking out problems. Because guess what? They'll find us.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's spending time focused on possibilities. The three of us, know people, right, that have situations similar to what we all have, right? Like I know people that have missing fingers and, missing a leg and so forth. And we all know people that like that are getting much different results in their life. But that's not about their circumstances, because we have something similar. It's about their choices.
Yeah.
It's about how are they choosing to view it. Because here's the thing. Disability doesn't mean inability.
You just talked about others in the disability community and other people who have disabilities similar to yours. And you talk about that, about a girl specifically in your book, about a girl that has the same disability as you. How has connecting with other people in your disability community shaped your life and just how you deal with things?
So, Kyle, I belong to a group on Facebook of people that have kind of similar disabilities with mine, and it's been a great joy to kind of share a little bit of my experience with the group and also learning from them. I mean, it's just been tremendous. It's funny. People ask me, do you ever speak to groups of disabled people? And my response is, yeah, every group I speak to. Because, like I said, it just comes in different forms. But there is something very, very gratifying and of connecting with people that have similar experiences.
All right, so I wanted to jump into something fun. You carried the Olympic torch in, was it 1984? Was that?
Yeah, 84, before both you guys were born, I'm sure.
So Sean carried the Olympic torch in,
Awesome.
Was it 2008, Sean?
It was. So the Beijing Games, the Olympic torch came through San Francisco. It was the only North American site the relay ran through. And I was selected to be a member of that group that
Cool.
carried the torch.
So I guess I have two questions for both of you. So Roger, how did that come about? Like, how were you chosen to carry the torch?
There was a radio station in San Francisco that had heard about my story and asked me to run with it, which was a tremendous honor. I also, Sean, ran in San Francisco.
Wow.
And it was in the Olympics. 84 was Los Angeles.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was amazing, amazing opportunity. So yeah, that's how I got to run it, and one of the greatest honors of my life.
So you talk about the people that were standing on the street and cheering you on. What streets were you actually on in San Francisco?
So I was ran Union Square, then through Chinatown, and finished up down by Market Street.
So Sean,
Wow, very cool.
do you think those were some of the same roads that you were on?
Well, I don't remember the entire route. I do remember when I was on the pavement. We were, I don't remember the name of the street, but basically the Presidio area. I was
Right.
kind of right in front of that water marina area where I don't even. I think it's called Presidio, but
So Sean, how were you chosen for the torch?
so nobody knew about me, so nobody invited me. So that's pretty cool, Roger.
Yeah.
But in 2008, very similar. Instead of a radio station, actually, some news outlets were basically soliciting the general public to submit a story, and from there they would select, based on these stories, individuals to represent the Olympic torch, or to carry the Olympic torch. So they had about 30 some odd people involved, and so
Right.
they opened it up to, I want to say, 12 or 15 general public. Then of course they invited 12 or 15 specific people, whether it be politicians or other athletes. You know, they had invited particular people, but they had reserved 12 or 15 spots just for general public based on an essay they submitted. And at that time, I had barely known about my condition for about a year, and I had met a couple of different people. One of those people is a little girl, or at the time she was a little girl, Ashley, and I had written a short page on what Ashley was up against in her life and how she was living with this neuromuscular condition. And from there, my story was selected as somebody that should carry the torch.
Awesome.
Nice. So what was the experience like, Roger? Like, what did it really mean to you? You said it was one of the most impactful things in your life.
Right.
In what way?
Well, a couple of things, Kyle. First of all, it was such a patriotic moment. You know, people were waving the American flag, and you know, Sean, you know what that was like. It was pretty incredible. Reminded me of how lucky I am to live in the United States and the opportunities that this country has given me and gives all people, certainly people with disabilities. And secondly, it was just, you know, the Olympics to me are something that is, it's such an amazing event that I know for me, I always enjoy watching it on television. Just to be a small part of it was really, really exciting. Really was.
You know, I look at the Olympics and I think, what an incredible platform for all walks of life to come together. So for me, it was such an incredible experience because, yeah, I'm not an athlete. I wasn't selected because I'm a world-class talented swimmer or tennis player or anything of the sorts. But for sport and competition and that area of life to be such a common ground where it doesn't matter what your skin color is or what your disability is or what your belief system is, this is the whole world, quote unquote, come together for a few weeks or for a few events, and nothing else matters. So, like you said, Roger, to be just a small part of that, what an incredible honor.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt, Sean. Exactly. That's well said.
So, I want to move on and talk about speaking because both Sean and I are interested in speaking. Roger, we've gone to lunch a couple times and just talked about how to advance and get better at speaking.
Wait a minute. Sorry. Kyle, you live in Pennsylvania. Roger lives like 20 miles away from me. I've never gotten lunch with the Roger. What is going on here?
Well, we'll definitely do that, Sean.
All right. Everybody heard that, right?
Absolutely.
I'm just playing. All right. Sorry, Kyle. Keep going.
Nice. So, Roger, what is the largest audience you've ever been in front of?
51,000 people for the National Amway Convention.
Wow.
Where was that?
Outdoor football stadium. It's in Charlotte.
Oh, wow. 51,000 people just to see. That's like rock star status, man.
Yeah,
well, I don't know about that, but it's funny because people say, "Were you nervous?" And I said, I'm nervous every time, but it doesn't matter if it's 100 or 51,000. I'm nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So I read in your book, and I know of Speakers Roundtable a little bit, but
right.
Tell us what that is and how you're involved and how'd you get involved.
So Speakers Roundtable is a group of 20 speakers, and these are people that have been in the speaking business a fairly long time. Fairly well known in the marketplace, and we get together. It's a mastermind group. We just try to help each other improve. It's a very tremendous honor to be a part of it. And how I got involved in it was that when I got inducted into the Speakers Hall of Fame, then you become eligible to be invited into the Speakers Roundtable. But there's only 20 of us.
There are so many nuggets and value, so much value that you have provided to us and to our listeners today. So for that, we really appreciate your time. Real quick, where can people go to find out more about Roger Crawford?
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. Well, they can visit my website, which is www.rogercrawford, that's ROGER, Crawford.com.
All right, cool. And
wonderful.
There's some samples of some of your speeches and like contact info, social media stuff, all that right there on your website, right?
Yep, there sure is. So people can connect with me on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever.
But thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Hey, listen, Kyle and Sean, it was an honor. I really respect both of you guys and love what you're doing, and thrilled I could join you today.
Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. Find us online at twodisableddudes.com. And please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts.
We'd like to hear from you. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Special thanks to our audio producer, Jake Tompkins, who also composed the music.
Until next time, keep living with urgency.